Good morning and welcome to the third installment of the Undulation book read-along. Last time, it wasn't last week, it was 2 weeks ago, last time we reviewed the fundamental undulations, helping us to keep our spine free and easy every day. And this time what we're going to review is we're going to review the 5 undulations that I recommend for low back and hips. Now, a lot of people think of doing exercise or undulation when they have pain. So these are great undulations, and I designed them so if you have low back pain or hip pain, that they're good to get you out of pain. But it's also good to think about how, if we have a vulnerability, if you are vulnerable in your low back, this is a good thing to do on a regular basis to keep your spine healthy. So it's not just a matter of relieving pain or fixing something that's damaged. It's more a matter of how do we keep the tissues in a certain area? How do we keep them vibrant? How do we nourish the discs between our spine? How do we keep the ligaments that hold our spine together? How do we keep them supple and functional so that the muscles don't have to try to be ligaments and muscles at the same time? And that's what these undulations are designed to do. The first one is CatCow, which you see a lot in yoga poses. So you can do this on your hands and knees, which is pretty typical. And you can see that I've moved myself down to the floor today because all of these undulations are pretty much on the floor. But you don't have to do them on the floor. I'll give you variations for each one. So if you're watching this sitting in a chair, you can certainly do most, if not all of them. So let's start with the idea of CatCow. If you're sitting, you can do CatCow just like this, where as you exhale, you curl your spine, so you shorten the front. And as you inhale, you open the front of the spine and engage the muscles along the back of your spine. So before I move on to my hands and knees, I'll show you a couple of times and I'll go sideways. So you can see the movement here, exhaling, rounding through the back. It's kind of helpful to have the camera so I can see, am I rounding evenly? And then lifting up, using the muscles along the spine to lift myself up, and then open the front. So what's the purpose? Is the purpose of an undulation to go as far as I can to try to keep the movement as big as possible? I could certainly do CatCow, making it very small. One intention that I like to bring to it is how much movement can I spread throughout my whole spine? Can I get my neck to limit its movement like this, because the neck does that a lot, to even it out with my spine? Or when I fold this way, can I get my low back to open up as much as my upper back does? That's one intention that you can try. A big intention is to do it so it doesn't hurt. If that movement causes you pain, back off or slow down or do it in a little slightly different way so that it's pain-free. That's the same thing of all the undulations and one of the big points I hope I made last time. So now I'm going to go on hands and knees to give you an idea of what it looks that way and also show you one of the variations from my book. So I have padding. I have this great quilt my sister made me. You're watching, sis, I love you. And so on hands and knees, if this hurts your wrists, don't do it. Put your hands, you could kind of stand in a chair or at a wall, or just do it sitting like I showed. So inhaling, lifting the chest and letting the tail lift. So opening the front of the spine, using the muscles along the back to contract. And then exhale, pull your belly button towards your spine and round all the way through the back. One intention I like that I've shown in a video before is to try to get the movement to go all the way along your spine. So we have somebody who joined in. Welcome, Scott. And I'm just going to have you, oh, I have to admit him. Welcome. I'm going to mute you, Scott. Welcome, but let's see. And have you, Scott, if you could mute yourself and turn off your video, then you will not be, you won't be seen on the program. There we go. So I was about to show a variation of CatCow. One variation is to move vertebra by vertebra. I like to go from the tail. So inhaling, lifting the tail, and then coming one vertebra at a time up through the upper back so that the neck comes up last. And then from the tail, coming back. That's one variation. Another variation is to lift your a hand or a knee. So here, just going back and forth with the CatCow. This is a little bit of an advanced one. So keep going with the flexion and extension and lifting a hand and setting it down, which takes not only different core support, but it creates a different wave through the spine. And I think that's very helpful as an advanced move to be able to support your low back, because a lot of times when we hurt our low back, when we get that little tweak, it's not when we're doing a core exercise, right, that we were given by our physical therapist. It's when we're moving the table and have turned a little bit funny. So adding those variations into our movement practices helps keep our backs safe when we're doing that in everyday life. So that's the first one, CatCow. And then our second undulation is the Sacrum Stabilizer. I love this one. It is so subtle. You can actually do it when you're in a meeting, sitting, but I'm going to show it to you lying on the ground. And it's a little tricky. I thought about this. I'm going to show these exercises, and I kind of need to face the camera, but then I have to be sideways, so we'll just do the best we can here. So Sacrum Stabilizer is done if you're not sitting down in a chair, or actually you can even do it standing up, lying on your back with your knees bent and feet on the floor. There we go, like this. And do look up at the ceiling. I'm going to look at the camera, which is, I don't want you to do, but I'll do it so that you can hear me. So this is called the constructive rest position. It's a great place to be, especially if you have low back pain. There are a few people that this is not a good position. So if you are in this position and it hurts, you can go ahead and sit up in a chair and do this exercise in a chair. But if this is okay here, simply press one foot into the floor. This isn't going to look like much of anything. But if I press, I'm going to look ahead so you can see. I press and let go. And on the other foot, press and let go. So just alternate yourself, kind of like a cat kneading your paws. You know how they press a paw into the couch or your leg? So I'm just going to press one foot in, release, press the other foot in, release. And it feels really different. Even though it's a little tiny movement, I can tell the difference in my sacrum, in the muscles on either side of my sacrum. But just by pressing and releasing, little by little, my own nervous system will seek to establish balance. You might also notice, do you press more with the ball of one foot and the heel of the other? Try to even that out so there's even pressure through the ball and heel of each foot. So that's the way to do it, but as an advanced way, you can come up into a little bit of a bridge and press and release. Or you can add a little bit of pelvic tilt with your press and release, but that's advanced. And like I said, you can do Sacrum Stabilizer when you're in a meeting. You're sitting in a chair. If you sit upright, so you're on your sit bones, that's a different edition for me talking about sitting upright. But you can look on my YouTube channel. I have some videos that specifically go over sitting in alignment. But if you're sitting in alignment, you can press one foot, let it go, and then press the other. And you'll get the same sort of subtle movement through your spine. It's very small, but it starts to even things out because you're engaging the tiny muscles that a lot of times don't get any work whatsoever in our daily life. I should have memorized. I did have it memorized, but now that I'm in front of the camera, I forget. There's a term for that, camera amnesia. So the next one is Pelvic Tilt Plus. And this is another great exercise that people might have gotten from their physical therapist. But in undulation, it's a little bit different. And we're going to be lying on our back in constructive rest position again, and arching the back, and then flattening the back, or arching it one way and the other. Very much like CatCow, but we're going to focus here on the low back to start with. So again, back on my back. Sorry. Let's go back here. So simply arch your low back so that there's space underneath where you can put your hands. Your hands don't have to go under there. I'm just trying to show you that there's space. And then when you come back the other way, then your back presses into the ground. So just rotating your pelvis, so your pelvis is swiveling to create this space. I'm realizing that being on the blanket here is not very helpful. I needed it for my knees for CatCow, but now maybe you can see better the arching and the flattening. And try to go vertebra by vertebra. And that might make it a little bit more challenging, but it also starts to activate different parts of the muscles that a lot of times can be stuck or frozen, not literally, obviously. And see if you can take this motion up your whole spine. So it starts down at your tailbone in the sacrum. But if you develop the strength in your back, then you can lift more and more of your back off the floor. A variation that's really great for the upper back is to start this from your upper back instead of your low back. And this is really helpful for people with shoulder and neck issues, which is our next installment. But for now, just a little preview. Instead of arching your low back, the low back stays on the floor and the upper back lifts and lowers. It takes a lot of control to be able to lift just the upper back and not the lower back. So as you're lifting the upper back, if the lower back comes off the floor, that's to be expected. If you're trying to press your low back into the floor while the upper back is lifting, that's very advanced, and don't rush into that too quickly. So after Pelvic Tilt Plus, we have my favorite undulation ever. It's one of the most popular undulations, and it's called Happy Dog. It's a little bit of a variation of CatCow. So you'll want to have your blanket for under your knees again, if you're not on a carpeted surface. And this one isn't so much that you can do sitting in a chair, but if you don't want to get on your hands and knees, because if you have wrist problems or your knees hurt, you could do this standing at a wall. So if you just stand at a wall and bend your hands and put your hands on the, bend your elbows to put your hands on the wall, you can do this there too. Or bending over and putting your hands on the back of a chair standing up. But if you're able to get on your hands and knees, this is how it looks. So on hands and knees, if it's comfortable, and then slowly wag your tail to one side. So it's not a big fast wag, it's slowly wagging, and then curve your body to take a look at your tail. And then slowly go the other way. I'm going to turn myself on the floor here. So then you're going to go the other way and take a look there. Like all of our undulations, not only do we want to stay in a pain-free range, it's like, how can I make this movement feel good? How can it make my back feel better than it already felt? How can I get as much of my spine working and lubricated with this motion? And then, like a dog would do, right? You would do little stretches to make it feel even better. So it's not a fast movement. A lot of times when I teach Happy Dog, people want to like wag their tail really fast, like they see their dogs do. But this is a mellow Happy Dog. Okay? That's one of my favorites. And you can really just turn that into free-form undulation. All of these, once you get started with an undulation, you can turn it into free-form. And I actually think that's one of the best things to do, because free-form is how your spine gets what it needs, how your body starts to get the movement that it needs, because we've spent so much of our lives having our brain tell our body what's good for it, when we don't give our body much chance to talk the other way. And undulation is an opportunity for it to do that. And you get some great information. So the last undulation in the low back and hip series is called hip hiker. And this one I want you to be very careful of, because this requires being able to use your quadratus lumborum and your obliques. And some people, if they have low back pain, it's because those muscles are pretty stuck. They don't move very much. So you want to take it slow and easy. And if it hurts, back off, do the other 4 low back undulations, and come back to this one every once in a while. So it's called a hip hiker. And it's not easy to do sitting on the floor, but I'll show you sitting before I go back onto my back again. And basically what you do is you lift one hip off the ground. Here, I'm lifting my knee, and you set it back down. Not too difficult, huh? Lift it up, trying to use these muscles in here more than rocking. But when you're in a chair, it's a little easier because you have your foot on the ground. Here's, hopefully you can see it when I'm lying on my back. So, hiking the hip one way. Oh, actually having a blanket on a wooden floor makes it easier because it slides. So this isn't as easy on a carpet. So you're reaching one way and then the other. So you're pinching your side or shortening your side, let it go, shorten the other side. And then you can coordinate. So while one side is shortening, the other side is lengthening, and that just changes the movement. In some ways it's the same movement, but if you consciously are contracting on one side and letting go on the other side, it enhances the movement. It actually makes it more functional, so you're not fighting against yourself. So those are our 5 undulations for low back and hips. I suggest that if you have low back and hip vulnerability, that you do the fundamentals, which were in our last read along, one day, and then do the low back and hips the next day and alternate. You can see it didn't take me very long, even though I was describing them. You'll get a lot of benefit out of just 1 minute. And that hip hiker That's a pretty intense one. So a full minute doing hip hiking is going to, you'll feel it the next day. So you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, your undulations. And you can also build them into your day. Hip hiker can be done lying on the ground, sitting in a chair, or standing in line at the grocery store, brushing your teeth. You know, standing, you could hike one hip and set it down. So you can build these in throughout your day. So they shouldn't be difficult to incorporate. That's what I have planned. If anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can type in a comment. I'll wait a minute or two for that. But I will post this to YouTube and also have it on the Facebook Undulation Exercises page. So you're welcome to post comments there, which I'll be certainly happy to answer. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining me, and thank you also for watching where I have it posted. I'll see you in 2 weeks when we will go over the neck and shoulder undulations, some of my favorites. See you then.